Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about the Deuce Season 1, Episode 5. It's called What Kind of Bad? Full spoilers for the episode, as always. This show is really nailing the climactic final shot that suggests where things are going. Like, they always make it feel like a big moment. So at the end of this, when Vincent's standing at that sort of, not finished yet sort of front desk of what's going to be a whorehouse, and the camera just pulls back as the
it always does the pull back as well. Like it kind of sits on the moment and then moves backwards.
It doesn't always move back, because when he left the bar at the end of 3, the camera sort of it went up instead of pulled back.
Okay. It always does it's always a similar sort of motion though.
Yeah.
The pace of it.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. The music always comes in at the end of the opening scene as well, before the titles hit. It's this suggestive, okay, you kind of get what the point of this scene is just before it hits. But so we'll start with Vincent. Start with Vincent and Frankie's exploits, and Bobby as well. They all come together on this one.
Yeah.
So it turns out that building that Rudy was showing them, he wants to be a whorehouse, and it's something where the city's involved in this. Not officially, it's kind of like the streets, where it's okay, off the books, but you're not allowed to do this, kind of thing. So they want to try and clean up the streets and then give them a place to go. So it's an actual place where the girls wouldn't be on the streets, presumably they'd be just in the whorehouse, and guys would come in, discreet, and they could, it's a whorehouse. But Vincent doesn't want to have anything to do with it. He's like, no, I don't know the first thing about doing this. I don't, it's not my thing. Like, this is still kind of legit what I'm doing here at the bar. There's nothing actually illegal going on with what I'm doing here. Whereas this is crossing over into that line. And, Frankie and Bobby are like, can you say no to Rudy about this? Are you allowed to say no? And
it seems that he can. We never really get it pushed.
There's not enough time for it, because, Rudy's man comes in and he asks him, okay, so what's the opinion? And I love this scene because you have Bobby and I keep mixing Frankie and Vincent. Frankie and Bobby are down the end of the bar, and they're looking up, just sort of spying, and even Mike's at the other end, because that's his spot where he's just keeping an eye on things.
He can see the whole bar from there.
Yeah, he's seen the whole bar, and he's sitting doing his crossword, but he's paying attention. He's paying attention to what's going on, just in case this goes south. And he just no, that's fair enough. You can say no. It's an opportunity. You've passed on it, and you do kind of worry. You have that sort of sick feeling. Is this going to come back to haunt him in 20 minutes?
He seems a little pushy. He's like, "Are you sure? Do you want time to think about it?" But then he goes, "All right, whatever you say. It's you want to say no, you can say no."
Yeah, it's a really good scene in terms of you're reading. It's not that traditional thing where it's really obvious that he might get stabbed at any minute or shot at any minute. It's more subtle. It's more gentlemanly.
It's like the possibility that you could get stabbed at any minute is here, but it's not like you're going to.
It's not. If it's going to happen, it won't happen at this moment. It'll come back later and do something, if that's where it's going to go. But it's like a very subtle version of it, and I like that. It's actually Bobby though, who you see him at home, and he's just miserable. He's dealing with his kids, and he wants out of the house. And as he says to Vincent when he's explaining this, he explains that the doctor says if I go back to a work site and do more labour, I'm going to be dead probably within a year. He's just not built for it. He has to take things slow. So he likes the idea of being the one who manages this place. You deal with the money, you deal with all this stuff, but I'll be the one who's actually there. And I'm in construction, I can fix the place up. I've got all my guys who come around and do it, which leads to Vincent accepting it, and he's like, "Oh, sorry for going back and forth on this, Rudy," and all this stuff. But I actually love the minutia of when, because they come in, they talk about fixing it up, but then the later scene, Bobby comes in himself, and it's Bobby with Vincent, and they're walking around, and it's all these questions you would never think that had to be asked. But he's like, "Do we need locks in the doors? Do all the rooms need their own bathrooms so they can clean up? Or do we need this? Do they share a bathroom at the end of the hall? Do we need this?" And it's all these sort of technical questions, and I'm like,
and the answer to everything is the same from Vincent. The F I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, every single response is that. It's like, "Oh, you're helpful." But that was a fascinating idea. I never how often do you sit down and think about the logistics of what you need in a whorehouse?
No, I think it shows that Bobby might actually be quite good at this, because he's thinking about it from that angle.
Yeah, he's thinking about it from a construction angle where he's just a building places. What are the needs of the place that he's building?
Right, but it's kind of similar. Instead of physically going, right, what are the physical things I need to build to make this work? He just has to think, right, what do I need to build this as a business. It's the same way of thinking.
Oh, it's both. It's like,
Yeah.
it's the practicalities, but it's also because at one point it suggested, make sure there's an exit in the back so the men can leave discreetly. Make sure there's a VIP room that's a bit nicer than the rest of it.
Yeah.
Just all these little things. It's like, it's just the idea of sitting down like and planning something that you never think like until you actually sit down and plan, like, say, I don't know, even a library, right? Like, everyone knows what a library's like. Everyone's been to a library. You know, shelves of books, you got your front desk, all that thing. You need bathrooms, obviously. But the one thing you might not think about if you've never actually sat down and thought about it is like, how much storage room do we need in the back? Like, what's the turnaround like for the storage space?
There's the classic architecture story of an architect that built a library. And, he accounted for everything, but he forgot to think of the weight of the books when he designed it. So the whole library sinks like a couple of inches every year because he just didn't account for it.
Yeah, it's just funny things like that where you just don't think about the silly details that will actually ruin the whole process if you don't get them right. But no, it's fascinating. And it's fascinating to think that this might be like we said this last week, I think, before we even knew what it was, but certainly now I'm like, this is going to be like a hub now for the show. This will be a main location.
Yeah.
Next season, certainly, if not.
So it's really interesting that we're now, over halfway through this season, and there's barely actually a plot. It's all just characters doing things. There's not really anything driving the plot. There's no events happening that go, okay, we need to react to this and do that. There isn't any outside force. It's all just, hey, maybe this. Like, Rudy is arguably the closest we have to an outside force driving the plot.
Yeah, I'd argue it's maybe the type of show that doesn't necessarily need it in the same way as like other things. Because it's more about the characters all have their own motivations, and it's more about how expertly interwoven they are and how they kind of like clash in their own journeys as they're going.
I really like it. Yeah. I just think it's really interesting how, if you said describe the plot of this show, you'd kind of struggle. Yeah,
it doesn't have that one sentence pitch that you can give to someone.
Yeah.
Like, you can say, it's set in the 70s New York and it's prostitutes in the start of the porn, the boom of the porn industry. And it's like, yeah, but so far, we're still just kind of inching, like, it's taking its time getting to some of these ideas.
We're barely even touching on porn yet.
Yeah. It's been mentioned, it's been thought of, we've seen it a couple of times, but it's not really the driving thing quite yet.
It's definitely not what the show's about.
Not yet. Yeah, certainly not yet.
Yeah.
It's about the characters first, and that's definitely what we're seeing here. And I think it's fascinating, just the idea that Rudy's set Vincent up at this bar, and it's like maybe 2 months at most have passed, and now he's been offered to run this other place.
He's doing a good job, clearly.
Yeah, legitimate or illegitimate, whatever one it is, regardless, here's a second place for you to run. That's kind of how he approaches it, and I love that again. Like, everyone keeps saying, "Well, why do you want to work for him, Bobby?" Like, you were pissed like a month ago when he beat up one of your guys for the other scheme falling out, and now all of a sudden you're interested. And he gives these logistical reasons, be like, I can't get a regular job anymore. I can't do a job that I used to do. I have to do something that's maybe more management based, so that I'm not picking up things, running around, doing.
At any point, say he was a supervisor. He's used to being in charge.
Yeah, so he's got maybe some of the skills to keep things running smoothly. It'll be really fascinating to see how he works with the pimps and the prostitutes.
That's what I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, him interacting with them. And I like that Vincent is like, hey, you're not going to be partaking in the merchandise, as it were. It's like, you're married to my sister here, Bobby. I think that's like a amusing little touch. But
it is.
But actually, it's funny because when they first started talking about this brothel, I thought, is this going to compete with the pimps? Are the pimps going to dislike this? But then later on, he's like, I'll start talking to the pimps. He's going to actually use the pimps to fill it. Like, no, you have your girls be in here, but
it's everyone wins then.
Yeah, instead of the money going to the motel or the hotel they're using currently, that would go to these people instead, who have custom built it to be discreet and have bodyguards, have safe.
And they wouldn't have to worry. In theory, they wouldn't have to worry about the pickups coming around and the cops on the street every night.
Yeah, as they say, there'll maybe be a scheduled raid for show, but they'll make sure they'll know in advance. Like I said, it's endorsed by the system because they want to have a place for it, but they don't have to deal with it as much. So, yeah, of course, I'm still constantly thinking something bad's going to happen that's going to make all this crumble, and people are going to start dying and getting shot and stabbed.
I don't think it's going to happen this season, though.
I think that's fair.
Not anymore.
I think there might be like a hint of something at the end of the season, but not an actual. Like
Yeah,
maybe Vincent will realize that he's kind of not free at the end of the season. Like that'll be like the big defining moment for him, maybe at the end.
Yeah, it could be, but it's moving too slowly, I think, for me to. First episode, I thought maybe that's where we're going to get to this season, but now I don't. I do think it's interesting because we're having like time skips between each episode. It's been like a month since the last episode,
which we would never have noticed if he hadn't said that.
Right, but I think the next one, I'm expecting another time jump and the brothel to be just opening.
Yeah, or maybe close to opening, like they're doing the final touches, and it'll mostly be negotiating with the prostitutes and them, or something like that kind of idea.
But yeah, if it doesn't, if it's not like opening next episode, it'll open in the last episode of the season. That'd be my guess.
Admittedly, they might surprise me and do it sooner, but it wouldn't actually shock me if the final moment is actually them opening the doors for the first time or something like that.
I can see it.
You know, they could have almost the same shot of Vincent at the desk, but the camera goes through the doors. And you see people walking in. Like, they probably won't. They'll probably do it next episode, and then we'll have some the initial kind of what's going on with it. But no, so fascinating stuff in that sense. Let's talk about Candy / Eileen. Last episode we mentioned a lot of it was like sort of showing why she should get out of this. This episode took that and then turned it up.
Yes, it took that idea and beat you over the head with it.
It beat her over the head with it.
It did, yeah.
She's got this really kind of intimidating John, and he decides he's just out to rob her. He wants her money, and she tries to fight back. She pepper sprays him in the face, but he catches her. She just takes a little bit too long unlocking the door to get out, and she gets grabbed. And we see her at the hospital, and the whole scene, by the way, when she's getting attacked, is horrifying. It is horrendous, and we see her at the hospital in our next scene, and she's just beat to shit. And the doctor says, "Oh, you're lucky because you don't need anything. You know, no stitches necessarily. Just you'll heal. It's fine. Nothing serious." But she kind of chuckles at, "Oh, lucky. Yeah, that's what I am.
Yeah,
lucky."
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you get why the doctor says, like, "Yeah, this is kind of lucky. Like, not that this has happened at all, but this could have been a lot worse. So in that sense, you are very lucky." But yeah, she's like, "Nope, this is not good. I want out."
And arguably, I think one of the most powerful scenes of this season so far comes later when she's back out in the town, and I thought this was notable as well. This is the first time she's not been wearing her wig while she's been on the job.
Yeah,
I thought that was particularly noticeable. Obviously, we see her covering up all the wounds with makeup, and she gets a phone call. She gets an answering machine message from the new boyfriend, who we see her with earlier on, and that is also a very awkward love scene where he finishes and he asks, "Oh, did you finish?" And she goes in for seconds, like immediately, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not ready, like I literally just finished," and she just takes care of herself. And there's this real kind of awkward, and they kind of laugh it off at the end. He's kind of okay with it, but it's kind of this almost weird, like, emasculating moment where he's just kind of watching her deal.
Do you know what it was? It was okay until she turns over, so she can't see him anymore.
Yeah.
When she's lying on her back, she's doing it, and he's watching. It's like, okay, this is all right. It feels like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. But then she turns over, and it's like, no, I don't need you. I'm shunning you.
And it's almost this pathetic little putting his hand on her back to feel like he's part of it.
Yeah.
And it is pathetic is the word. He feels pathetic. I'm not saying it is pathetic. I'm saying he feels pathetic. He feels that way. And that's the thing. But my favourite part of that whole scene, though, is she says she has to go home, and we know she's making excuses because she has to go and do her job, and she doesn't want him to know what she does. But she makes up an excuse of having an early morning, and he is like, "Oh, at least have money," and he takes money out of his wallet, and of course, as soon as he starts to do this, I'm like, "Yeah, this is going to make it weird for her that he's actually paying her money afterwards," and it's kind of this correlation where he's not paying for the sex, but he feels the need to give her money because she did it.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly it. And it goes back to last episode we talked about how she didn't know how to date. She's kind of it's blurred the lines. She's a bit stuck in the middle, and this just enhances that. And
I don't want to talk about it just now, but I just want to point out how this connects very well to a scene. I think it's Ashley says to Abby about how husbands, pimps, and fathers are all the same. The pimps are just upfront about it. It kind of, to me, it correlates with that, where it's all kind of like, this is kind of the same thing, even though it's not. Like, there's these little things that he feels he has to give her something for her time, But and it's not actually a sinister thing. It's just he wants to be nice and offer to pay for the cab.
Yeah, of course. He's being a gentleman.
Yeah, that's what he's trying to do.
That's what he thinks he's doing, and he's very sincere in what he's doing. It's just she can't help but notice.
She can't help but feel like he feels the need to give something back for and it gives it that murky grey area, which is really great. But yeah, the most powerful scene in the episode. So she's back on the town without the wig, and Rodney, who we've seen a couple of scenes before in other episodes, has come up and tried to kind of convince her, come work for me. And he brings up a few points that we didn't really realise, I don't think, is that, this isn't as bad as last December. Like, he brings up previous examples where this was worse, where she got beat up even more.
Yeah.
And she tries to walk away, but he keeps pushing. He's like, he's almost offended that she's still refusing to take his offer. And she knows that as soon as she does, she belongs to him, because he won't, we see how they treat the girls once they've decided they're part of their pimp business or pimp empire or whatever. I don't know what the correct word would be, but and Connor's camera's gone to shit, but we'll keep going.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on there.
Yeah, it's alright. I'll monologue for a while. You'll come back as long as you can hear me. And he keeps pushing, and he gets forceful. And I love this scene because it's essentially her having a breakdown. She's having a breakdown and she's crying, and she's like, she can't take what he's telling her, and he's victimised her. He's making her feel small. He's basically, it's actually maybe the most sexist scene we've had in the entire show, where he tries to belittle her enough to feel that she needs him, and that's what he's trying to do. And she is, she's adamant she doesn't, but there's this great mixture of laughing and crying in the acting. It's like the performance from Gyllenhaal here is great stuff.
Yeah, it's standout.
But she sort of, she laughs and she cries and she walks away and she doesn't look back at him, but she's still crying, she's still laughing.
I really like how at the start of the scene it almost feels like maybe she will take it, because we get that she's desperate. She's just been beaten up. She is on the verge of wanting out of this life entirely. So maybe the idea of safety,
temptation,
it's appealing, isn't it?
The temptation is there to just give in and do it, but she persists. And we also, of course, have the scene where the guy actually tries to pick her up in the car, and she just walks off. She doesn't respond, and it's almost like that moment right there's a decision. I can't just do this anymore. I have to. Yeah. And she goes back to the guy who was making the porn, and some of the rules have changed. Kind of. It sounds very wishy-washy. It sounds like they've not changed at all.
It basically sounds like, we thought this was the law, but New York lawyers, no one gives a shit, so we're just going to do it.
It's basically, it turns out there was kind of a loophole, and we're going to exploit the shit out of it. That's kind of what it sounded like to me.
Yeah.
Rather
than to me, it just, the way he was saying it was just like, they don't actually care. In the same way that they don't pick up the girls on the street, it's like no one gives enough effort to bother.
And there's a little poignant moment where he says, "Oh, you're too banged up right now. We'll say a week from Wednesday. Give you time to heal." And again, it's almost like a dehumanizing little moment. It's like, you're not good enough right now. You're going to have to wait because of what happened.
But she's happy anyway.
Oh, she is. Like when she smiles and she says, "When do you want to start?" It's like a proper, like, she's ready to do something else. Like she's almost excited by fighting out her way out of this life.
It's almost like, she should be going, she should be offended by, you can't start now. But the way she takes it is almost like, I'll have a week off. I'll relax and get over this for a week, and then I'll jump into something new.
Yeah. I want to go back to the scene where she is attacked. I think it's really well filmed. The way she gets grabbed back into the room and the door just slams shut, but we stay on the other side
outside
of the door. Yeah. We don't get to see what's happening. It's just a really nice touch in the filmmaking because your imagination's, I mean, it's weird to say this when it's something as awful as this, but your imagination does almost make it worse in a lot of ways.
They can show you something, and it's this thing where you see so much violence on TV and film anyway that you kind of just get used to it. It doesn't, a lot of the time, unless it's filmed really well, it's just like, okay, that's another stabbing. And I'm sure this would have been filmed really well because everything else in the show has been.
Yeah.
But they kind of get away with it. It's easier for them just to, they go, you do the work on this one. We don't have to do anything.
And arguably it's more effective. So, it works. But, depending on the scene, it might call for one or the other, but here this definitely worked, was keeping us behind the door. So that's Candy's stuff. Darlene's an interesting one in this episode.
Yeah.
Darlene, we actually start with her, and I actually wasn't sure if this was a flashback or not for a little bit, because she's with her friends in Carolina, and she's talking to them, and they're all living normal lives, and they're all out for like breakfast or lunch or whatever it is, and she keeps talking about being a model in New York, and at first I'm thinking, oh, is this just what she's lying and saying she's doing? But then at one point she actually says to one of them, oh, you should come back with me and do it as well. And I thought, oh, is this a flashback before she really fell down under and had to turn to this life? Of course, we find out later that she's actually Larry knows she's went there, and she's kind of.
She says she's on a mission.
She's sold this trip back home to Larry as I'm going to go and recruit another couple of girls, and it's like, man, that's dark. Like
she's on a scouting mission.
Yeah, and she ends up, it's the waitress who actually comes out and talks to her and sounds really fascinated about New York and oh, this sounds glamorous, and she comes back with her, and Larry doesn't want her. He treats her so awful because she's younger and inexperienced, and passes her off to Rodney. Again, it's very demoralizing, very
He literally sells her.
He does, yeah. He sells her, and he doesn't let her know she's been sold. This is all he basically gives him a nod. He's like, okay, you work for him now. You've been traded.
Yeah, they say, think of it like football players. They get traded from teams time to time.
Yeah, and of course she actually witnesses the candy scene with Rodney, and it's like, oh man, this is what's ahead for you. By the way, just pay attention.
Yeah, it's this realization, isn't it?
Yeah, was the small town life this bad? I mean, there's all these things, and it's really hard hitting stuff. But I thought that was fascinating, and I think obviously the most hard hitting scene is Abby finds out. Abby meets her in the street. This new girl, Bernice or Ginger, as Rodney decides to call her, and she's like, "Wait, Darlene's back?" And Darlene comes into the bar with some of the girls, and Abby goes up, and Darlene just won't look at her. She's so ashamed. She's trying to shun her away.
Yeah,
it's really.
Abby's pretty pissed off, clearly.
Yeah, because she already had that confrontation with Reggie earlier in the episode where she takes a photo and he gets pissed about it, and she sort of fights back with attacking his his lifestyle, his position, get a real job, you treat these girls awful, blah 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 blah, and it's this idea that she wants to rebel to the point where when she comes back in for work later on, she's not wearing the little the skimpy little outfit that's the uniform. She's wearing her regular clothes. And one of the other waitresses is trying to rebel because she's doing it, and he's like, no, it's the uniform, and that goes for you too. But you can definitely see where the conflict's going to be here. She's the forward-thinking person, and it's not even like she just has her own people either, because she goes to this party with a date, one of our college friends, and she feels so out of place. She doesn't even want to be there. She just gets up and leaves at one point because she feels like they're all just talking about movies and stuff, and.
I'm really interested to see how she's going to react to the brothel. Is she going to be really against it because it's propagating the lifestyle and empowering the pimp still and keeping the system in place, which is obviously what she's against, or is she going to support it as a safer place for the girls? Yeah,
legitimize it a little bit more.
More just like we can keep them there. We can have our bodyguards. You got the guys on the door. You can kind of control it a little bit more.
Yeah, it makes some sense where she could maybe have that opinion on it when it could.
It could go either way with her, and I'd believe it.
But will Vincent lie about it though? Will he not tell her, and then she'll find out? Because that'll go a very different way.
That would go different, yeah.
that would go a very different way if that turns out to be the case. So no, I like that stuff. Like that scene with Darlene though, where she won't even look at her, and then when she does finally look at her, it's with those evil eyes, just get away. You can almost feel Larry over the shoulder, just rubbing his hands like he's got a hold of her so tight.
Yeah, it's rough, isn't it?
Yes, it feels like she had a chance to get out and she didn't, and you actually really sympathise with Abby's anger and hurt, because she tried to do something she thought was right and it backfired, and it does kind of hurt. And this is actually one of the points I was thinking about during this episode. Actually, is Abby's the only one in the show where I feel like she's actually had a sexy scene. And what I mean by that is most of the sex in this show is not actually that attractive. It's very grim and gritty and just unappealing.
Yeah.
It's very sleazy. Whereas whenever Abby's flirting with someone, though, specifically with Vincent, typically, she actually does have a kind of a sexy vibe. She smiles, she'll smirk, she'll it'll feel playful. It'll feel like it actually is kind of enticing.
It'll seem genuine.
And I think it's interesting that the only female character in this show who's been in like a sex scene where it's felt remotely attractive is the one who's not a prostitute, and then every single one else, it feels kind of grimy and. Okay.
You're right.
I mean, Vincent did have sex with the other barmaid in the first episode, and I guess that wasn't as bad. But like, on the whole, though, just looking at it as like a sort of broad, like just how awkward or sort of, just kind of empty a lot of the other sex scenes are. They're lacking any kind of emotion.
It's very routine.
Yes. I think that's kind of interesting, and we see that with Paul, because Paul, the bartender, we get a bit more with him in this episode. We see kind of more his inner workings again, and there's a little moment with him and Mike. We find out Mike's more of an artist. That's a little funny moment because Mike's just sitting doing a crossword, and when he offers to like do the art for an advert for the newspaper, Vincent's like, "Oh, can you fit it in? Can you got the time?" And he just sort of looks down at his newspaper and goes, "I'll fit it in my schedule." It's just. The idea that he's just he's sitting there at the bar. He could be drawing things all day.
Dude cracks me up.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's pretty funny. But Paul actually gets arrested. He gets caught up even though he did nothing wrong. He gets caught up for soliciting even though he's not. It's one of these things where the cops are just farming their arrests.
Yeah, they're getting him because he's gay. Is the implication that it seemed like.
Yeah, it's a homophobic sort of
Yeah, so they can't arrest him for being gay, but they can get him for this, and it's like, well, that'll do.
Yeah. It's obviously awful, but it comes right after a really awkward scene with him where he's in the porn theater, and this random guy like sees him, and again, it shows you again the absurdity of the situation where he's actually got his dick out and he's holding it there in the theater, and he's just sort of sitting there. Everyone's okay with this because it's a porn theater, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
But it's funny actually because it kind of parallels with a conversation he had with Frankie. Earlier in the episode, because Frankie was talking to him about how the difference between heterosexual relationships and homosexual relationships, if I say that properly, is like he's being kind of naive about it, but he's talking about how lesbians probably have sex the least because women are the ones who don't typically want to have sex that much, which isn't accurate, but that's what he's thinking. Yeah. And he's talking about how, men and women have sex more, but the women will often say, "Oh, she has a headache," and it's these stereotypes, these things where he's not really thinking about it as like a mature adult. But he's like, so gay guys.
But he's not a mature adult.
Well, of course, but gay guys must have the most sex because it's just guys. Like, it must be dick all the time.
I mean, if you take the stereotypes that he's going with as true, his logic is sound.
Sure, but they aren't true.
They are, no. So, just his logic is sound, if the premise is accurate.
Sure. So he's in this theatre and he's got it out, and this guy just comes up and says, "Do you want some company?" And he's like, "Yeah, go for it." And I love the little touch that the guy spits in his hand beforehand. It's just a little moment that just adds to it. It's just like
it does, doesn't it?
Like, just adds to the kind of griminess of it. But he gets arrested, and Vincent sends Mike to bail him out. He gets some money from the register to go bail him out.
Yeah, because he's a good guy.
And of course, Mike's like someone who clearly as a black man has felt prejudice in his life from the police, as get shouting shit at them as he's walking out. So again, it's all on the surface. Everyone knows why they're doing it, why they arrest gay people, why they arrest black people, why they arrest people they shouldn't be, and it's kind of all on the surface. So it's playing with all these things. Paul goes to a nightclub without his boyfriend because his boyfriend's not into it.
Yeah, it's the same thing presumably as last episode where it was like, let's go dancing.
Yeah, and he goes with this other guy and he ends up meeting this guy in there. And I want to point out just how sort of majestic this gay club scene is shot. Everything's in slow motion. It's
incredible.
Yeah. And it has that neat trick where, I mean, I'm sure you know how they do this, but I'll explain it for people who don't. They have that neat trick where they're in slow motion, but they're still dancing in time to the music. Are you aware how they do this?
Yeah.
So basically, when they film it, and obviously they film it with more frames per second, so when they slow it down, it looks nice and smooth. They'll film it with the song playing at like twice the speed, or whatever speed they want. Yeah. But then when they slow it back down, they play the song. So let's say they're filming it at double the frame rate. If they put the song at twice speed, when they put the song back at normal speed, and then they slow down the video to regular speed, It will be in slow motion, but it'll still play with the music. They do it a lot for music videos. It's a very common thing you get for that kind of thing. But it works really well because you get this effect where they're sort of dancing and slow. They've got that slow motion effect.
But it's still got the momentum from the music.
But it's very effective. So there's a lot of dancing, and he takes them back home and to where his boyfriend lives. Because as someone points out, like his boyfriend pays for his rent.
Yeah.
So he takes him home and you think, oh, it's going to be a big confrontation because he's drunk and his boyfriend's going to flip his shit. But sure enough, the other guy just kind of seduces him and initiates a threesome.
Yeah, have a bit of weed, come and join in.
That's basically what the scene is. But yeah, so so we're getting a bit more of a window into his life, and we'll see how that develops, I think, as it goes on. Paul's a funny character to me because he wasn't in like the first 2 episodes. It was kind of this... He stealthily came in partway through.
Yeah, and when he did start getting introduced, I was like, okay, he's going to be there. I wasn't expecting to have separate plots following him, like his thing. I was just thought he'd be just around. And it's one of those where I don't know where it's going with him. I don't know what his story is yet. Like, I don't know what the purpose of his character is going to be.
Yeah, the scenes have all been really, really well handled. And I think it's an interesting addition, though. I think adding in like a gay character for this time period, given all the themes of sex in the show and how that's handled, I think having a gay character makes a lot of sense.
Oh, of course. That's the thing. Yeah. I understand why they've got him there. I just when we talk about Vincent, we go, okay, I see where his arc is, and we talk about like Candy, we go, okay, I see what she's doing. With Paul, I don't know what the overall purpose of his character is yet.
Yeah, arguably Abby's a bit more ambiguous as well. Like, we've had some guesses, but they've kind of like...
Yeah, but at least like with her, I go, okay, she's really rebellious. She's the one that's going to, poke the holes in things if it comes to that.
Yeah, well, which actually reminds me, we did actually mention that. I mentioned it when I was talking about the other plot, but the scene where Ashley... she's like, why didn't she leave? She had the opportunity, and Ashley says, what makes you think she wanted to leave? What makes you think she didn't like her life right now? And she, she has that line where, pimps, dads, and husbands are all the same. The pimps are just upfront about it. Cutting satire, as it were. Which obviously is a bit of a broad brush, but maybe there is something of a point, because her father, like, obviously has kind of disowned her because she dropped out of college. Like, she's not because I think the other line she says is, they like you for who you are until you try to be someone else.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's like that's what her father's done. Like, as soon as she dropped out of college, she's not the person that her father was kind of raising all that time. And I think it's maybe interesting that she might relate to she might not want to become a prostitute. She might never see herself as being part of that society, but she might relate to them a lot more than she thought she could to begin with.
Interestingly, I've kind of taken it the opposite there.
Oh, go on.
I kind of put her in the shoes of the pimp. She was the one going, no, she's the one taking the control, going, she's the one going, here, have the money, you go, you do something else. She's the one trying to take control of the situation.
That is a very good read on it, and it backfired and she doesn't like Darlene anymore because she's not the one she thought she was.
Right. Which,
is also an interesting bit of commentary. It's like, well, it's not really about gender all that much. At least not as much as it maybe is on the surface.
No, more about just the identity of the person.
Yeah, and obviously men tend to fill into that role more, and women tend to fill into their roles more. That's why we have stereotypes in the first place. And we shouldn't, but we do. And this is maybe analysing, saying, no, other people can fill these roles. You can have someone there. It's just a case of, who the person is, what's led to that point in their life, kind of thing.
And it makes me think going forward, maybe she does learn about the brothel, and she's like, you know what, I don't want to be here in this skimpy outfit, but maybe I can come and help run the brothel.
Yeah, from the management point of view.
Because we know she wanted something to do with the accounting side to begin with anyway. When she came in. So maybe she goes over there and goes, look, let me help out here. Let me prove that I can do this.
Yeah. And it makes me think, going with this theme, at one point, Rudy loves Vincent right now, but when Vincent tries to be someone else...
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
All these things, they kind of... that's the thing. We talk about how this doesn't have like an overall plot that seems to be tying everyone together, but the themes sure do like to...
Yeah, it's thematically, it's incredibly tight.
So fascinating stuff, basically, is the point I'm at with that, where it's just... It's really poking at the identities of these characters and what their roles are supposed to be and what roles they want to have, and if they're willing to fight to have different roles. So I think, if nothing else, it's an examination of why people end up doing what they do, for better or worse. So that's pretty cool. So in terms of stuff we have left to talk about, we had one scene with Cece and Laurie.
Yeah, it was interesting.
It's funny how we've had 2 episodes in a row where they've only had one scene each. Something's happened to Laurie, and we don't know what yet. Because Ashley comes in, she's made a fair amount of money on this particular night, and she is demanding that she, maybe, she's like, oh, what's wrong with Laurie now? Like, why does she look like shit? Yeah. And he says there's been an incident, but he doesn't say what. She's went through something, and he just insists she goes away. That's actually right before she goes and speaks to Abby.
And Laurie looks really distraught.
Which makes, and I imagine we're going to find out at some point, but
I think we have to, but I think it has to have been something severe, given that she's shown herself to be quite strong and capable.
On the surface, maybe.
On the surface, at least. Like, that's what I mean. Like, she's shown herself to, whenever something happens, she'll stand up. So I assume it has to be something that's quite impactful to hit her like this.
Maybe. Maybe the guy who went after Candy went after her as well, and
maybe
that's the second time she's had a violent encounter, and
could be
so much time. So it's curious. It's just one scene. It's because I was really noticing they weren't here the whole episode, because there was such a big part of the first 2 or 3, and then the last couple have been kind of just the one scene each. But obviously, something's boiling, something's simmering away. We're definitely getting. I'm
just waiting for it to all, to come out at once. And it's like, okay, this is all the shit that's been going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. So another small thing is so that the couple of couple of lesbians, the couple of prostitutes who are in a relationship together, Barbara being one of them. I don't have the other girl's name yet, but they're actually, the reason why they're making so much money is actually because they're stealing from the Johns.
They're running a racket.
Yeah, one of them is like keeping them busy during sex, while the other one tiptoes in and takes money out the wallet. Just a simple little scene.
I like how she's clearly gone, right, I'm going to the toilet or something like that, because she comes back, after she takes the money, she comes back, she goes, oh, did you finish without me? Like, like she was only gone for 2 minutes or something.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a comical little scene, for given what it is, but it is kind of funny. Especially since she shows up at another scene where she's got like so much cash, and like the pimp's really impressed, and like, the other one's been kind of, oh god, your feet hurt, big deal. Larry's giving her like shit.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. That was a different scene actually, but yeah, the same difference. But yeah, so. So all that stuff. So the one thing we've really not talked about yet at all is the reporter, Miss Washington. Of course, she's been with the police officer Alston, and she's asking him more questions. He's helping her out some more. They actually, he's with his partner as well. Actually, he's with Flanagan. They're in the car, and it gets a little bit heated because she kind of like pokes it like, well, this is kind of corrupt. Why are you doing this? But they basically admit that a lot of the guys get their arrests right before they're supposed to be like finishing, because that puts them into overtime, and they're kind of scamming the system so they get paid more overtime.
Yeah. Smart. Don't blame them.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. And Alston brings up this story from Greek mythology about the boulder going up the hill, and the punishment is that he has to keep doing it, and it keeps rolling down the other side. And that's kind of what happens with the prostitutes, where they keep putting them away, but they keep them back on the street the next day.
Out by breakfast is the line they use, and so it's like, oh, what's the point? If we're gonna do this, we might as well get paid for it.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, but he wasn't getting paid every time he put the boulder up on top of the hill. And Flanagan takes, a bit of offense to this. Well, I work for my money. I work hard for my money. Like, he gets really like, and it's like, but at the same time, you kind of see her point. Like, what, you're really not accomplishing anything.
No, but what's he supposed to do at the same? He takes them back to the station.
I mean, him personally, he's not really meant to do anything. This is the problem. It's a system problem.
But it's why he gets so offended, because he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I take them to the station. Doesn't matter if I do it now or if I do it when I'm going to get overtime. Regardless, nothing's going to change.
It's just a cog in the wheel. If he stops moving, they'll just remove him and put another cog in his place, and it'll just keep spinning. Like that's the whole thing. And but I think that's kind of what the reporter part of the plot is going to be, though. I think is going to be shining a light on some of the real problems with all this stuff. I mean, obviously a lot of it's very obvious, but I think her analytical view that's going to bring into the show is going to shed lights on things like this, where like Flanagan can't really do much about it, but he is kind of part of the problem in the sense that he doesn't even speak up. Like, we've seen Alston kind of like, he wants to test the the safe zone. He's not supposed to arrest people on the street. He wanted to test that, so he's willing to push for things a little bit, and we see that she is as well with her editor. It's like he's like, no, this is not a story. Let's just like, propagate stereotypes.
Like, yeah, let me get a bit of a longer piece then. Let me do better.
Yeah, let me do better. Let me actually blow this wide open and show what it's actually like. And he's like, no, this propagates stereotypes. This is like, like this is how people are going to read this. This is just going to like support the problem, and it's her wanting to prod at it, him like looking at it from a different angle. It's looking at different viewpoints, and it's bringing all these different things in. And I think, like, again, she wasn't in the first couple of episodes. She's kind of like, been planted a bit more and more as we've been going further along. And I think, again, it's another viewpoint, kind of like having the gay element of what it was like at the time.
Right. It's what's it like to be outside this system looking in.
Yes, yeah, but she kind of represents us in a weird way, because she is the outsider looking in.
Yeah. But again, the difference between her and Paul is I get the purpose of her story. I get what she's doing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
With Paul, I don't quite see where it fits yet, other than just being another viewpoint, like you say.
Yeah. But hers is a lot more obvious because of the role that it is.
It is, yeah. It's by its nature, it's hard not to see it.
Yeah. So obviously, Alston sets up the interview with Reggie Love, and he leaves her there, and obviously he's flirting with her, and they have clearly that's still building, even though she's still kind of like using him to like all these favors to like get her talking to people. So I'm sure we don't really get much of it. We see a little bit of intimidation where he's like, the first rule of pimping: look at the man in the eye when you're talking to him, kind of thing. But otherwise, it's his usual sort of slick talking, like getting more money out of her, just being kind of true to what he's normally like. But
yeah, he's been a pimp, isn't he?
he's been a pimp.
He is nothing if not genuine.
That is true. I will say he's the one that I actually struggle understanding sometimes. The way he speaks is a little bit thicker than what everyone else does. Like sometimes he'll use like these like little sayings and metaphors that I just like they'll whisk by me a little bit.
No, I get you.
He just he has like a really thick dialect, whereas everyone else I'm like fine with, because that was him and Rodney in the bus station, the first episode, that I had trouble understanding a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was him, it's the same character. He was the one who was like, he was the way he was talking was just really thick, and it was difficult at times, but not a big deal. It's true to character. It'd be weird if he didn't.
Yeah, it plays up the persona, doesn't it?
Yeah. So no. So have I missed any characters or plot lines that we've talked about?
I think so.
I don't think so either. Certainly not. I thought this was back to feeling like there was a lot of separate plot lines, but all of them felt like Candy's was hard hitting. That breakdown scene is one of the standouts of the show so far. I think her trying to like hold it together, but realizing she just can't. Like she's broken. She is literally broken by this lifestyle. She's ready to go. I thought that was fantastic, and I really liked the build up to the whorehouse and Vincent's kind of ending with the counter.
Yeah, it was just such a nice moment.
Yeah. And maybe see what all the rooms are like. I'm like, yeah, maybe use a bigger bed, I suppose, would be my one recommend. Maybe that's the VIP room. You get a big king-size bed.
Yeah. I did like the whole point of, the reason why they ended up doing it and agreeing to do the whorehouse was, well, someone's going to do it. Might as well be us. At least we can, treat them right.
Yeah.
Like pretty much everyone kind of took that ideology. And that kind of... Even the police are like that as well, aren't they? They're going, yeah, well, someone's going to take them in, so we might as well do it. We might as well get paid the overtime.
Yeah, it's kind of like, especially since we see that they all kind of interact with each other. We see them at the cafe, Leon's, we see them at the bar, and they all kind of intermingle, and they're all part of the same system. So it's kind of like, yeah, of course they don't necessarily want them all to get hurt. Like, the ones who hurt the prostitutes, the ones who are dangerous, are these outsiders who are like drifters and these other...
But it questions that, how far does that ideology go? How far can you go? Well, it might as well be us, till you're doing something that's not that good.
Exactly. You keep justifying it until at one point you realise you've crossed the line.
Yeah. I feel like that might be where this show goes. And like, how far does it go before it hits that limit?
You're really part of the problem, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's episode 5. We got 3 episodes left of the season, so by all means, let us know what you think of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. We have an audio feed for this review series now. Search Mail of Us TV on your iTunes or podcast app. You should come across it and all the other stuff I've got up there. But no, so if you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/MailofUsTV. You can see what's available over there, and feel warm and fuzzy for keeping us going and keeping these reviews coming. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?